Hello, and thanks for watching my presentation. I'm Dan Hickey. I'm a professor with the Learning Sciences program at Indiana University. This is a presentation that I gave to international visitors on February 21st, 2025 at Indiana University. Uh, Today I'll be talking about higher education assessment in an era of AI and digital technologies. This is an extensive report that I've drafted over the last year. It has not been approved, so I'm not allowed to say who commissioned it, but it was carried out targeting UNESCO's Sustainable Development Goal for quality education. SCG4 is pretty straightforward. It ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning for all. So this was adopted in 2015 as part of UNESCO's Education 2030 initiative, right? So we're 10 years into Education 2030, and we've made a lot of progress. I think we've got a ways to go, and I hope I can give some assistance in this regard. First and foremost, I scoured a lot of literature and reports on this question of AI in education, and specifically AI and assessment in education. And I've concluded that these are really, if you go anywhere for information, these are all really good starting points. The Meow and Holmes report from UNESCO is a really, really well done piece. There's a series of working papers from the Modern Language Association, uh, stuff from Post from the UK, and then in particular Lodge's reports from the Australian Tertiary Education Quality and Standards Agency are just really, really solid work. These people are very, very solid scholars associated with the Cradle Center at Deakin University, and I just thought it was just so sensible and so well written. Sarah Eaton, she's the editor of the International Journal of Academic Integrity. Her blog is fantastic, and then the Cradle Center at Deakin is also a really good source of more information beyond what I'll be able to talk to you about today. I reference these reports extensively in my report. So I have a chapter on relevant trends in assessment technology as they relate to Education 2030. These are fairly standard stuff there. I added quite a bit to it in terms of assessment theory. Much of that was removed downstream, but that's an area that's very important to me. I've talked a lot about authentic assessment and student-centered assessment. Those are sort of buzzwords these days. Very trendy and worth unpacking some. Have another chapter on new opportunities in assessment generated by AI and digital technology, right? So, I mean, automated assessment and feedback, this is tremendous. A lot of instructors are discovering that generative AI platforms are very, very good. Now, that raises issues over intellectual property. Here at IU, you're forbidden from doing this. However, we do have Copilot. We have an institutional version of Copilot, and I believe it is we are allowed to upload anonymized student work. I don't know many people are doing that yet, but I know lots of people are talking about it. Um, I want to focus on number 6, use an existing LMS or Google Forms and GAI. I think this is probably one of actually the fastest ways that an institution can really get up to speed and up their assessment game. Uh, Google Forms and existing LMSs have tremendously powerful assessment engines. The challenge, of course, is creating the items that go in those engines. Most instructors are really bad at this, and even instructors who are good at it typically find it very, very onerous to generate items. And in particular, a big focus in my research is alignment of formative and summative items so that they're similar enough so that the uh, the student knows that they engage in the formative assessment feedback, right? They're primed to it. They've tried to answer it. Now give it an expert answer explanation. That will help them on the corresponding summative item, but that the summative item is different enough that it requires a degree of transfer, so that you're not engaging in sort of test prep and undermining the validity of those summative items. Well, you can ask GAI to do this. You simply say, use a different context or use a more general context. We have a paper, Morgan Lowe and I, my advisee, have a paper in review on this topic at Assessment and Education. And one of the points we make in there is there's a fantastic paper by Indran. It's in medical education, but it's a really straightforward guide for using GAI to create assessment items, different types of items. The third chapter was on challenges in AI and assessment. This is right. These are all should be fairly straightforward. Academic integrity is a massive one. AI detection software is a big challenge. One challenge that I wrote about that I think a lot of people don't think about is the prior waves of assessment reform. Most of you know, I've seen this over and over again in my career, starting with my postdoctoral fellowship at Educational Testing Service. I was hired to help with these large-scale performance assessments in K-12 schools in the US in 1994. And by the time I got to ETS in 1995, all of those innovations had just evaporated, and they primarily went away because of instructor workload. So it's really important to make the point that the really big thing about generative AI and assessment is that they can reduce the instructor workload. Then finally, I had a chapter on recommendations. I had recommendations for institutions and educators. And then I have another set of recommendations just for educators and course designers. Um, so let me go ahead and talk about these for a bit. Number 7, emphasize process and staged assessment. Again, comes from Lodge's report from Australia. Break assignments into smaller, manageable tasks and have iterative elements that really thwart unproductive uses of GAI. Reduce the assignment weights. Again, there's that Lodge piece, and there's some other really good references that talk about exactly how to do this. Recommendation number 8, define acceptable AI usage levels. So recent research has showed that students are often just utterly confused about what is and what isn't allowed. It turns out at a place like IU, there's no standardized definition. There's no definition of 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 what is unacceptable outside help uh, regarding AI at IU that isn't on. If it's not on your syllabus, then you don't have a case of plagiarism if students are using AI. I really like Perkins et al. This 5 levels. I use them in my course, and I say, for example, that in my graduate courses, that number 4 on your assignments, but number 3 in your assessments. Number 11, again, going back to Lodge, engage in conversation with students. You really can learn a lot about how much a student knows by just talking with them. It's a very good way of determining whether or not they actually whether they used AI. Now, this distinguishes if they've used AI in productive ways in completing an assignment or assessment, they should be able to tell you what's in that writing, right? Because they worked with it. But if they're completely blank, if they don't know anything, then you have a pretty good idea that they didn't engage productively, but rather they let it do the thinking for them. There's a website at Tufts University that Cardamone posted that had just fantastic prompts for starting these conversations that I really recommend. Finally, when it comes to detectors, um, I was a member of this task force that drafted this report on generative AI, and now I'm chairing a subcommittee putting it into place. Adam Maxwell and I and Maggie Gilchrist have drafted. We are proposing these 4 policies. The important one there is that evidence from detectors may not be used in academic misconduct hearings, and so we're moving on to syllabus statements and compliance training down the road. Thank you very much for watching my presentation. I hope you found this useful. Um, Given your interests, you may also be interested in 2 outstanding free open courses that are available from my colleagues here at Indiana University. One is the Student Essential Gen AI Skills course. you can log in there, or if you just go to expand.iu.edu and search for that Essential Gen AI, you'll find it. There's a companion instructor course there, that there's the login for that. You'll need an IU guest account for both of these. Very simple thing to go. You can just Google IU guest account and you'll see the information it asks for. And finally, stay in touch. I'd love to hear from you if you found this interesting and useful. Thank you.